Generating traffic and sales can be a challenge for online merchants. But selling on the Walmart Marketplace puts your products in front of millions of customers who shop on Walmart.com. And right now, sellers who join Walmart Marketplace can save up to 50% on referral and fulfillment fees for the first 90 days. So get started today. Head over to marketplace.walmart.com/savings. That's marketplace.walmart.com/savings.
Welcome to E-Commerce Conversations, a podcast by Practical E-Commerce.
What is going on, Internet? Eric Van Holtz back again with another amazing episode from E-Commerce Conversations. Hope all is going well on the other side of the Internet. On the other side of the table for me, Chris Williams. Welcome. How's it going, man?
Very well, man. Thank you.
Yeah. It's always fun doing podcasts with other podcasters. Welcome to the show. Why don't you give our audience a little listen about what you're doing, your show, and kind of the business you're building.
Yeah, so my name's Chris Williamson. I'm a podcaster from the UK. I have the Modern Wisdom podcast, which is 400 and something episodes in now. Guests like Jordan Peterson, Ryan Holiday, Robert Greene, James Clear, Aubrey Marcus, Seth Godin. We talk about human nature, we talk about marketing, we talk about the world, philosophy, life hacks, biohacking, fitness, health, pretty much everything. But I'm a club promoter by trade, so I've spent a long time filling nightclubs with young guys and girls in the UK that want to go out and get drunk. And that's given me a pretty interesting overview, I think, of how marketing works, especially to do with brand building. That's really what you're competing on. And then when it comes to podcasts as well, you know, people are competing on the quality of the conversations they have, but it's also how does this come across online? How do people interpret what you're going to give them? And what is the sensation of listening to this podcast like? What does it say about you that you listen to Modern Wisdom? What does it say about you that you listen to the Joe Rogan Experience or whatever? So yeah, there is a thread, although it might seem tenuous going from club promo to doing a podcast. There is actually a single thread between the two.
Well, are you still doing the club promotion?
Yeah,
so you do
that's
both,
still taking over, yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about getting into podcasts. I mean, did you just wake up, roll out of bed and say, hey, I want to interview all these brilliant minds? Or
Well, I enjoyed guesting on podcasts, which I'd been invited to do, and that was really fun. So I thought, well, I want to do this more. The best way for me to do this more is if I have my own show. You know, the same as many people's businesses may end up being something they kind of tumbled into. Really good piece of advice that one of my friends gave me to do with service-based businesses was if you're looking for what you should be doing in life, think about what your friends ask you to do already. So if your friends keep coming to you because you're great with relationships, maybe you're a pretty good dating coach. Or if it's that your friends always come to you to get advice with their business, then maybe you're a business coach, whatever it might be. And yeah, I loved having conversations and then decided I might as well just start this podcast myself. And then, yeah, like I say, 3.5 years, 400 episodes, 25 million, 30 million downloads, not slowing down.
yeah, so the math on that, there's 52 weeks in a year. That's 150 weeks. So you're doing multiple podcasts per week.
3 a week at the moment. Yeah. Did 1 a week for a year, 2 a week for a year, and then 3 a week for the last 2.
How do you, I mean, this is from my perspective as someone who's not a very good organized podcaster. How do you line up 3 people a week? And not only that, I've also found the more quote unquote remarkable a person is, the harder it is, the longer you're scheduling out, things like that, the more challenges you're having with.
Yeah, very much so. It's just once you get into the rhythm of doing anything, man, you know, so I've just had my hair done by your guys, and that, well, if you look at the individual things that each of them need to do to be able to make that happen, it's so complex. But because it's second nature to them and because they're in the routine of it, they don't really feel about it. So for me, I book out my schedule about 2 months in advance so I can see where I've got gaps. I know that I need to record 3 times a week because if I record 2 times a week, I need to do 4 the next week in order to catch up. And I just look at weeks and go, okay, where am I doing 2? If I have 5 in a week, okay, maybe can I try and switch something around? There's usually one that I'll guest on, like I'm with you today. I was on Michael Malice's show yesterday. I was on Tim Pool last week. So when you've got a calendar that's laid out in front of you, it's quite easy to see what's going on. But you are right, especially if you're talking big name guests. Bridget Fettersy, who you might be familiar with, she's coming on. The next date I could get for her was the end of January. But once it's in the calendar, it doesn't matter. You just build everything out from there.
Yeah, and then hopefully they don't reschedule on you.
That's the worst. So the absolute worst thing is if someone just doesn't show or cancels last minute, because that slot could have been taken by someone that was able to make it work. And now you need to do whatever for the following week. which you may not have even planned to get in, or you may have even had 2 next week because, I'm taking a week off, I'm going away to Texas, as I've decided to do. Yeah, you can end up chasing your tail, but there hasn't been any catastrophes yet.
Yeah. Let's talk about what moving from 1 week, 2 week, 3 a week has done in terms of, I guess, your business, your podcast, and growing your business. Have you seen a direct impact on the amount of content you're putting out there?
Yeah, so one concern I had was that by increasing the frequency of releasing content, that would spread the same number of plays over more episodes, which would be unfortunate because that's all the more work for no more exposure. But it turns out that my audience just came along for the ride, and plays per episode went up, whilst plays across the month doubled and then 150%ed. So it was perfect. I mean, I've got advertisers on the show. I have a lot of partners that I work with that I absolutely adore. And obviously, the more episodes that I do, the more ad inventory I've got. And then the more listeners that you can get away with going from 1 ad to 2 ads to 3 now. I think topping out at any more than 3 probably makes the listening experience a bit uncomfortable. Personally, I'm also not a fan of mid-roll ads. So if you're listening to an episode and then right now it cuts and goes, hey guys, you should learn about Beard Brand or whatever.
Yeah.
That to me is a little too intrusive. So I've gone away from them. But yeah, man, 3 episodes a week with 3 slots per episode, 9 per week. So what's that? 36 per month to work with advertisers on, which is great in terms of earnings. It's meant that I can now bring on an assistant. It's meant that my video guy can get more time to spend on the project because he's better remunerated. We've got a guy looking after socials. So it's just slowly building this team out around the podcast.
Yeah, let's talk about that internet marketing aspect of it. Like, how do you grow this? Is it all organic, or is it just the guests you bring on the shows? Like, what are the keys to growing a podcast and getting the word out there?
Yeah, well, I mean, they're actually quite similar to what you guys have done. So YouTube is fantastic for growth. I think any podcaster that isn't using YouTube is just missing out massively. It's incredibly difficult to grow an audio platform because there isn't an up next autoplay. There's no trending. There's no suggested podcasts for you while you're listening to something else. And also the experience is far less frenetic. So when you're listening to something, usually you go on, you select it, and maybe you lock your phone and leave it in a different room while you do the washing up or hoover the house or play with your kids or whatever you're doing, walk the dog. So the best way that I've found to grow the audio plays is by crushing YouTube. So we've focused a lot of attention onto YouTube, and then the presumption is that's your wide front end of the funnel, that's your discover, and then we filter people in from there. Now, that being said, you can do things like if you've got a guest on, make sure that you use the audio link when you tag them online, because to me, 1 play on audio is worth about 100 on YouTube. And the same goes for subscribers. We've got about 250,000 subs on YouTube, which is great. But if I had that many on audio, that would be unbelievable.
Bonkers.
Yeah, that would be insanity. So it's just a case of trying to find a way you can discover new listeners and then filter them down. Because there are a lot of people will watch you on YouTube because they think this is cool. But then me personally, if I discover a new podcast that I love on YouTube, I think, oh, well, I'll go and subscribe on Spotify or on Apple Podcasts because I'm not going to watch every single one of them, but I might listen to far more.
Mm-hmm. Are you producing your content with YouTube in mind, or is it simply just grabbing your podcast and re-uploading to YouTube?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, it's optimized for both, I suppose. We've definitely changed how much we focus on YouTube over the last 18 months, really stepped the quality up with that. I'm filming on a lovely DSLR. We've got beautiful color grade on it. We've got a lovely intro, lovely outro. We're making use of end cards. We're doing tags. We're doing some other sort of Fetly stuff. We went through a huge rebrand with regards to thumbnails, and all of those were redesigned, and they've all got kind of a signature look to them and the watermark and all this stuff. So yeah, they're worked to optimize for YouTube, but by doing that, you end up inevitably with a good audio episode. I don't think that it'd be very difficult to have a good YouTube episode that isn't good for audio, but you can do the reverse.
Yeah. So you're doing full episodes then on YouTube. Do you clip them up as well?
Correct, yeah. So that's the second part of it. As a podcaster, if you want to grow your show, you need to be focusing on YouTube. And if you are focusing on YouTube, you need to be doing clips, because committing to an hour and a half of you having a conversation with some person that very well may be very interesting is just such a huge commitment for so many people to make. Right. And by having the thin end of the wedge, there's 5 minutes with Jamie Metzel talking about John Cena's apology to China or something. And you go, actually, I'll watch the full episode. So let's say that you had your clips, make use of end cards so that you're then directing people to the full length episode. That's really easy to do because you only need to film maybe 2 or 3 canned outros of you going, hey guys, thanks very much for tuning in. If you enjoyed that, then press here to watch the full unedited episode. That's going to drive people from clip to longer form. So we've still got a funnel moving now within YouTube. Then when people go to the long episode, pinned comment can be, if you want to get, so I release them on audio about 8 hours before YouTube. If you want to get access to this 8 hours before it goes live on YouTube, subscribe on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And there's your funnel going from 5-minute video to full-length YouTube version back into full-length audio version.
Is your growth on YouTube purely organic?
Yeah, there's no paid.
Okay, so it's just trying to figure out what the right thumbnail is, what the right title is.
And topics as well.
Yeah.
So here's one thing that some podcasters, far fewer than should realize it, have done, that if you have a topic which has come up, just bring it up on the podcast and use that as one of your clips. So you can go into an episode thinking, right, I have an agenda here.
Right.
So, for instance, China, I had Jamie Metzl on my show today. He's been on Rogan a bunch of times. Great guy, really informed about China. And they've just released that children under the age of 18 can only play 3 hours of video games per week. So because China, the state, control the businesses, they have forced the businesses to ensure that they're not frying young kids' brains, and they're allowed to play between 8 and 9 on a Friday, a Saturday, and a Sunday night, and that's it. They can't use, because you got to log in through the back end of some cloud. That's it. I knew that I wanted to talk about that, so I just make sure that I hit that talking point. I bump Jamie off, so he goes away, and then when my video guy goes through it, he'll just clip that bit out. Jamie Metzl on China's new video games policy for children. There's your clip. Okay, and now if you can build maybe 2 or 3 or 4 of those out per episode, you know that you've got, maybe one, not all of them will come off, but you've got probably 2 or 3 banging clips, all of which are based on news stories that you know that were really recent. It's a win.
Yeah. How are you staying in tune with what's relevant, what's going on in the marketplace? Are you just on Twitter reading everything? Or
That is a good question, because I try to be efficient with this and I don't want to burn all of my hours just watching culture stuff online. So yeah, that's part of it. But if you have an intense period of research, I reckon about the 2 hours leading up to speaking to a guest for me is really important. So I'm in their Twitter feed. I'm looking at what they're thinking about. I'm looking at recent episodes that they've done. Maybe they're talking about a book, so I'm looking at the book as well. I've probably got them on in my ears on a previous podcast too. And things just come up. You know, you see them retweet something and you go, oh, that was interesting, man. I saw that you retweeted this story about whatever it is the other day. And it'll usually come out of there. But also, what are the headlines? You know, what's something huge that's happened this week? Just ask them about that.
Yeah. What's something huge that happened this week?
China, man. 3 hours of video games. What else did we do? Michael Malice brought up this new Omicron variant. I mean, the fact that we've got the Greek alphabet and we already missed G because that's the name of the leader of China, but we kept in Omicron, which sounds like an evil villain out of a Marvel movie. And the next one's Pi. So anyway, that was one of the things that we brought up. But yeah, man, just what are the headlines in the news this week, and talk about them.
Yeah. It's been pretty wild out there nowadays. Now, are you able to bring in any kind of like other marketing channels into your business? Is it all content? Is that the primary source of focus on you? Or have you been able to bring in an e-commerce component to it, or somehow tie this in with your club promotion?
No, so club promotion, sadly, it's so geographically constrained, right? Unless you're in Newcastle between the ages of 18 and 25, like it's just so restricted. For me, I'm going to start doing merch through Modern Wisdom, which is something I should have done a long time ago. But unless you're doing it at scale, the margins aren't unbelievable. And it's more for me, the advertising pays the bills. And I would much sooner try and grow the podcast and grow my revenue through increasing plays, because that will also have all of the downstream benefits that I want. One of the biggest things that we did over the last 18 months was start an email list, and I've started a weekly newsletter, which I love, which gets tons and tons of love online. And we've got the mailing list up to about 25,000 people with an open rate of about 40%, which is really great. I'm aware that that's high value weekly to a very warm audience who also consumes a ton of other stuff.
What's your strategy with your newsletter? How are you delivering content, or what's the focus of the content there?
So it's called 3 Minute Monday, and it is just an insight about something I've been thinking on, usually kind of like a bro science philosophical treatise on something that's occurred that week in my life or that I've read or whatever. A preview of upcoming episodes, 3 things that I've learned that week, usually a quote or some interesting stats, and a life hack. Those all kind of hark back to different elements of the podcast. But by having the life hack in there, what I've permitted myself to do is if I ever need to do affiliate marketing, if I ever need to give one of the advertisers an extra bump, or if I do a collaboration with someone, there's always room for me to put that in, and it never looks forced.
Mm-hmm.
There's never, oh, and this episode's brought to you by whatever, or this newsletter's brought to you by anything. It's always just in there and looks nice and organic, and because I get to choose who I work with, it all is perfectly chosen. But the click-throughs on it are crazy. I mean, everyone that's listening that does e-com knows this, but the value of a high-value, well-written, loved newsletter is, this is like trite to say, it's Internet Marketing 101, but I didn't fully understand that. You know, I've got a all rightly sized Instagram with 110,000 people on it that's pretty well engaged, and a Twitter that's got 50K on, and the podcast. But if you just put something out on email, man, people read it and they click.
Dude, wait until you learn about SMS.
Yeah. So what are the conversions like on SMS?
Oh, dude, it's bonkers.
Really?
Well, at least for e-commerce, it's just absolute bonkers.
Crazy. So you, when you're going through your customer capture, are you having email and phone number?
Yeah, so we do things a little bit differently at Beard Brand because we want to be like value add. So I think your typical e-commerce is doing like sales and promotions and buy. What we do is Sylvester, who you met, is wearing the green hat in the barbershop. He's one of our customer experience people, and he will give you one-on-one style advice. So it's like send a selfie to Sylvester, and he'll be like, yeah, you should grow
Over
your
text?
Yeah, over text.
No way.
Yeah, and he'll be like, yeah, grow your hair out. Of course, it all starts with a flow. Like, here's a quick guide or whatever to get you started. And then when I get to it, you know, here's the advice. And he'll get like updates like months down the road when they took it as advice and, you know, kind of before and after shots.
That's sick.
And then, you know, when we do have a promotion, we'll be able to leverage that. Or we also do like limited edition products like Black Sales, which we talked about earlier. And to be able to get advanced notice of that, we would encourage them to.
So you're on the VIP list.
Yeah, the VIP list. So that could be another way. It's like if you want early access to the podcast, first comes out on SMS.
That's sick. Yeah, that's fun.
I almost want to show you like, because my friend was texting me this just yesterday, and he's just like, are you doing anything with SMS? We just started our Black Friday, Cyber Monday, never done any SMS before. Results are nuts. Never seen a response like this.
Welcome to the party.
Yeah, and I'm like, yeah, dude, man. And I feel like it's kind of like SMS is right now, it's kind of that golden area where other brands have already broken that door down. So you're not dealing with all this like fight back from
New
people are like, what?
shit.
Yeah, what's going on? You're texting me. Like you're still going to get that because not everyone's getting marketing text messages, but it's not so late that people are burnt out on it.
Did you get into using chatbots at all?
We did. We did that for a while, and we replaced it with SMS. So it used to be the chat bot to do the recommendations, but I'm not a big fan of chat bots because they just slow your site down so much.
Do they?
Yeah, and then they'll also block certain areas, like the chat box comes up, and then you know the add to cart button is right below it, or you know whatever happens.
Oh, I tell you what. One thing. So I've got a buddy who's does a good bit of e-com, and he was talking about. You very well may have seen this. The difference of conversions when you just have an Apple Pay button where people can buy immediately from the gallery. So before you actually get into the individual product description, just having a buy it now with Apple Pay. And he'd been split testing that for a long time. And some of the results that he'd got out of that were crazy, which just shows how friction aware customers are on the internet now.
Yeah.
Even the slightest degree of increasing convenience can make a huge change.
Yeah. I mean, Amazon with their whole like one touch. And whenever I have a shopping experience that is super easy, I was like, oh yeah, this is great. Like I don't have to put my credit card in. I just, you know, scan my finger or whatever it is and boom, it's done. Like it's definitely nice. My 8-year-old daughter's leveraged that convenience as well. And we've had Lego kits just show up at our house. So,
is she taking your finger while you're asleep and just pressed it on the Touch ID?
I don't know. I don't buy on Amazon, so I don't know what that Amazon shopping experience was, but she definitely found her way to Amazon on my wife's computer. So I think it was
clever girl.
Yeah. So I can't really blame them, but you got to use that as a lesson. So one of the downsides of really easy purchasing. But I think that's the other interesting thing is like your friend mentioned, like this one purchase thing. It could work great for one company and then be a complete dog for another website. So it's just the importance of A/B testing and experimentation, I guess, is kind of the word they use now instead of like conversion rate optimization.
Yes. So you were talking about other channels that I was using to grow things. For me, I've found that repurposing content from the main podcast into clips and then repurposing those into different formats, that works really nicely because you've got the same audience that's listening to the show, that's following you on YouTube, that's following you on Instagram, that's following you on TikTok. And especially if you have a team that understands the edit, that understands your voice and your messaging and knows what you would want, the whole thing just becomes a endless flywheel of content where you record your big long form piece, then it gets split up into, it gets repurposed for YouTube, gets split up into clips for YouTube, then the best of the episode gets chopped onto Instagram, then the best of the Instagram gets chopped for TikTok or whatever it is. And all that the main creator has done is record an 1.5 hour long podcast episode. So really understanding repurposing and getting a flywheel in place so that you have an infinite content engine, so that you go from big piece of content all the way down. Jordan Peterson was on the show and he used the perfect analogy. He said, it's like you could write a book and sell it by the sentence.
Yeah.
And that is the most frictionless way, I think, whatever brand you are, if you are doing long form or even medium form stuff, you know, so if you did a super short edit of the haircut that I've had today at your place, you know, that can be 15 seconds and that could make for a pretty cool TikTok. You know, at the beginning, the spin, fast flash cuts, and then at the end, the spin again. You're like, it's pretty cool. Like you get it. So yeah, that would be a really, really good piece of advice. If you're thinking, okay, I like the idea of doing content marketing and adding a little bit more color and value, but I can't be bothered creating purpose-built content for everything. Well, if the original content is of high enough quality and good enough energy and well put together, that one piece can filter everything else.
Yeah. Are you the producer for the content? Are you also like directing, hey, we need to do this for TikTok? Or do you have, you mentioned you're building your team out. How much autonomy do they have for creating their own content from this master content?
Yes. So the social team just do whatever they want.
Okay.
So I've got Joe, who is a consultant, but he works with us full time and a number of other clients. And he has, it's taken a fair while for him to actually get on the nose exactly what my messaging is. But now he's got that. He listens to the show anyway, which is again, it's a competitive advantage that you have of doing a podcast, one that's good. If the team listen to it because that's what they want to do, because you've got cool people on that are interesting, their play feeds into their work in a roundabout fashion. So he's got full autonomy. When it comes to the YouTube stuff, that's still me because that's kind of culturally dependent, and coming up with the tags and the titles and the thumbnail is really important. So here's another thing, right? Like I'm all for outsourcing your work and I'm all for creating a team that goes underneath you, but you can take that too far. And especially if you are the person that understands with the highest degree of resolution why you're saying the things you're saying, what the reason is for you putting this out. Jamie Metzl talking about China's 3 hours a week policy. Okay, so why was it that we spoke about that? What are the obvious points that this is coming from? That's still, on, as far as I'm concerned, that's still on you. And until you've got a producer or a manager or someone who's basically better at your job than you are, outsourcing it, every time I've seen someone do it, it's ended up in their channel underperforming, or it's ended up in their content becoming more soulless because it's obvious that it's not coming from the creator's voice. It's coming from someone that's trying to be like the creator. And no matter how much your team tries to match what you would do, it's very, very rare that you find someone that can do it properly.
One thing that I've kind of told my team over the years, we have a team of about 12 people, is if there's ever anything where there's a decision and it's my opinion versus your opinion, 100% of the time we're going with my opinion just because I've been doing it forever. But if it's my opinion versus your projection, then we'll go with your projection. Your projection versus my projection, mine. And then your data versus my projection will go with your data. You know, so it's like encouraging them. Yeah, we're encouraging them to come with their guns loaded, not just be like, oh, I think we should do this. It's like, okay, well, I think we should do this. We're going with me because it's my company and I've been doing this for 10 years now. So there's just things that I know that I don't want to bother telling you all the nuances of things. But I think that's kind of one of the challenges of growing and scaling is being able to, you know, transfer that creative talent. I know, you know, Mark Rober on YouTube.
Yes.
He's a science guy and he still edits his videos. Like to him, like that story is something so important that he can't unleash it, and it's clearly working for him. Like every video gets 25 million views or something like that.
Yeah, how often he publishes slightly less frequently?
Yeah,
right?
Once a month, like one incredible thing a month is kind of his goal.
Yeah, but I mean, I think that there's a lesson to be taken from that, man. Don't get me wrong, you know, doing the fundamental edits and getting rid of the fluff and adding in B-roll and doing color grades and stuff. Yeah, sure, outsource that. But when it comes to the storytelling, the stuff that really matters, that's on you. The same for me. So the show notes are written by me. The reason that I write the show notes still is because the intro, hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm speaking with blah, da, 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 da. We're talking about this, that, and the other. All of that is, if you're a listener to Modern Wisdom, that is your welcome mat. If I end up repurposing what somebody else wrote for me, that character is going to be lost. And then if I get someone to write it and I don't like it and I change it and then I work out frustrations and power games, it's just, for me, it's simpler. So that's a degree of control that I genuinely don't know when I'm going to get to the point that I actually delegate that down. It seems so fundamental to the user experience, my equivalent of a user experience. You know, the buck stops with the person that owns the company at the end of the day. If a shitty marketing campaign goes out that's got a typo on it, fundamentally it's your problem.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is the advantage that everybody's got. Every small business, every agile, small, independent company, the way that you can beat the bigger one is by being more reactive, by having your finger on the bleeding edge of what's cool, of what's up and coming, of understanding trends, and of being able to do subversive, more interesting things that bigger brands can't do because they're too slow. They're not agile enough. They're lumbering around. They've got to... I work with a number of very big brands, right? And if I need to get a particular campaign signed off for me to do on the podcast, I look at the email chain and it's this disgusting list of 10 different people that all need to say yes to something because there's the area director, then the senior area manager, then all this stuff. Like if you're a small business, utilize the fact that you can do that. But the problem is the buck's always going to stop with the owner. And if that's you, then you need to take that responsibility on.
Yeah. What do you visualize your life being? What is the path you want to do as you strip off duties? What do you want to be left with once you've kind of like gotten to your nirvana business, I guess?
Good question. Yeah. So for me, just focusing on the conversations with people, I think there's not a whole lot that's still in there that I would want to get rid of. Certainly being able to fly to go and see guests more frequently, that's more of a logistics thing. In terms of tasks, I'm pretty much there, man. Like I like what I do. I wouldn't want someone else to do my research, for instance. I know there's some content creators out there who have like a fact sheet that they get drawn up by everyone else. And like the fundamental thing that you are delivering as a podcaster is the conversation. And you haven't researched the foundation that the conversation is going to be built upon. I'm not here to listen to a cheat sheet of the 10 most interesting facts about this person that you're speaking to that some intern has decided to create for you. I'm interested in understanding how your vision of the world and their vision of the world come together to create a synthesis in a conversation. So for me, that would never be something I would outsource. Editing the episodes on audio would be quite nice, but we're pretty much there. My video guy's just phenomenal. Again, I don't know how realistic this is for many people, but the two business partners I've had for the longest time, my main business partner for Nightlife and my video guy for Modern Wisdom, are both friends. They were friends first that became business partners. And I know that that's fraught with danger a lot of the time, but somehow I've managed to get lucky. So I thank my blessings, whoever it is that's continuing to send me these interesting people because they work harder than anyone that I would know. Here's an interesting thing to actually add on to that. I had a guy called Rich Diviny on who created the Navy SEALs Mind Gym. So they were looking at the fact that Navy SEALs were trained physically very well, but they understood the mentality of a high-performance pursuit quite poorly. And he talked about the fact that we recruit people based on qualifications, but we fire them based on their attributes. So as an example, he said, if you wanted to learn how to hit a target 25 yards away with a handgun, give me a couple of weeks and I can probably teach you how to do that. But I can't teach you how to be humorous. I can't teach you how to have resilience. I can't teach you how to be a team player. These are attributes, they're values. So one thing that people definitely should look at doing as you're starting to recruit for your team is not just does this person have the requisite qualifications and the skills, because really anyone that's growth-minded enough, their skills can be brought up to the level. It's what are the attributes this person brings in. No one's ever said, this team isn't working. I can't bear to work with that guy because his programming capacity is down. It's because they're a dick, or it's because they're not a team player, or because any one of a number of different attribute-based problems. So yeah, looking at building a team out based on attributes first, not based on skills, seems like a smart way to go.
One thing that along those lines that always kind of struck me was we're all born knowing the exact same thing, which is nothing. And the things that we've learned over the years are things that we chose to learn. So that option or that ability to learn anything is there. And I think along the lines of what you said earlier about enjoying what you're doing, one of the things that I think is really important is enjoying the journey. And I know you've mentioned that as well. Like this business, assuming that you're a business owner listening to this business is your own and you're in total control of it. You have that ability to dictate whether or not you're doing the things that you love. And as you said earlier, the buck stops here. If you're not working to build the life that you want to build, there's no one to blame but yourself. Figure out how to enjoy the journey, because the destination, if you get there, is not going to be as great as what could have been if you just enjoyed it the entire way.
Man, it's so trite to say now, right, that it is about the process. But there is no purpose to killing yourself in the desperate attempt to try and find success, thinking that it'll make you happy if you make yourself miserable on the route to doing that. It's just, you've turned the bar stool upside down. There is no reason that you need to do that. You can find joy in the work that you do today. And if you can't, if there is a piece of work that you absolutely detest doing, hire someone that's going to do it on your behalf.
Yeah.
You know? Just get the person in that's going to do it. Let's say that I absolutely hated recording the intros. Okay, if it's that bad, then I can pivot the way that the podcast's done, where I just do dynamic ads. So there would be like those cold read things where you just get insertion. And that would be fine. And that would fix the problem. And yeah, maybe it wouldn't be the exact product that I thought I was going to do, but it also wouldn't mean that I was banging my head against a wall every single week.
Yeah.
You have to find a way to enjoy the thing that you're doing. And as business owners, the Puritan work ethic, right? This love of suffering simply because it makes us feel like we're working hard is something that everyone needs to be conscious of, especially in the UK. I actually find that you guys have a better work-leisure balance in the US than we do in the UK. I wonder whether that's a byproduct of Austin, because there's a lot of things going on and there's, quite a vibrant outdoor eating culture and the weather's quite good and stuff like that. But I find that a lot of people in the UK struggle to give themselves a reason to take time off.
Yeah.
And maybe that's because they've got nothing better to do. But
It's that gray weather, man.
it's not very inviting.
No. Where can people learn more about you? Where can they follow your podcast? Where can they follow you on the internet?
Yeah, Modern Wisdom on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever else you listen. Chris Williamson on YouTube, and Chris Will X on Instagram and Twitter, etc. And there's a free list of 100 books that have really influenced my thinking, interesting, impactful ones, fiction and nonfiction. And it's free at chriswillx.com/books. You can get that for free.
Hell yeah, man. Well, thanks for swinging by the office, the Beard Brand office, and looking dope with a great fresh haircut. And if you guys want to see what his haircut looks like, we'll be posting that video up on the Beard Brand YouTube channel as well. So,
yes, sir.
Chris, thanks for coming by. This has been another e-commerce conversations. Cheers. Keep on growing.